Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to a DADCAW. It is Thursday, the 16th of April, 2020, 8:52 in the morning, and I'm trying to get my microphone stand to behave so that it doesn't creak all the time while I'm talking. I think I've got it. All right. So, what has been going down lately? A lot of Hydra testing has been going down lately. I've also been so busy still that I keep forgetting to tell myself, hey, you should actually record a DADCAW for the previous week. So this is actually last week's DADCAW in terms of like number of DADCAWs per week, which means I'll have to have another one, another makeup one before the end of the month somewhere. I think. Pretty sure that's true. So, since it's been busy, things were trundling along and speeding along in many respects, but I still feel more present than I did way back in January. If you remember, I talked about how, I think it was in the channel map for February, I talked about how I had no idea what the hell was happening with regards to that month and how it just felt like it blazed past, even though, of course, I was able to do daily streams that month and all that other fun stuff. But yeah, feeling pretty good these days. Feeling pretty happy, pretty centered. And certainly grateful that I'm still able to get out of the house and go to work. And obviously everybody's wearing a mask now, or most people I know are wearing masks. Everybody should be wearing masks. Yada, yada, yada. But still pretty cool. Still pretty tightly knit. And certainly feel a embiggened sense of community. Not just online with you guys, but also with my local populace. My neighbors, if you will. Even though I don't really have neighbors. But my neighbors in my neighborhood. Those guys are pretty cool. So, with that said, what do I actually have for you for a real topic? Well, stimulus check came in. Trump gave me some money. Very nice of him. A small loan, if you will. And except I don't have to pay it back. So, see ya. Thanks for the money, idiot. No. When I saw that, I was like, oh, cool. I can not work 4 days this week. So that was nice. So even though I'm working today on the day of recording this, I will not be working tomorrow, which will be nice. So I'll take that opportunity to fuck off and get some more work done on Hydra, which is what we've actually been doing. So the topic of this particular DADCAW is actually going to be about the multiplayer testing that has been happening and what that means and some of the things that have been afforded to me as a result of doing so much multiplayer testing, which wouldn't be possible without some of the people who are listening to this right now. So thank you, actually. But I do have to say that the multiplayer testing has opened my eyes to a different sort of conception of balancing and all that stuff. It really does make you think about the position that the AI are usually in, because you are actually playing as the AI, or you're seeing other people play as the AI, either your allies or your enemies, and you're spectating it, or you're actually participating yourself. As the map developer, it opens your eyes to a huge number of changes that probably should be made in order to make those positions viable for your everyday average Joe, or to allow them to be competitive. Now, of course, some of that is definitely colored by the fact that we have a quite varied amount of skill in our particular group of testers. You know, some people are at the high end and some people are at the low end, obviously, but I think that almost helps in a way. It gives me so many different perspectives on so many different areas of the map, and I get to see how people take engagements in those areas and what ends up happening. And obviously it's a far cry from the kind of feedback that I was getting when it was player-centric, right? Human player-centric. And you were just seeing what the human players were doing in the human player slots and how they were faring against AI players playing in the AI player slots. It was much more of a binary takeaway in that sense. I was able to get far less useful data about certain areas of the maps, whereas obviously when it's all players all the time, you have much less predictability, we'll say. And you have to scout. You really feel that too when playing. You really does underscore the necessity for scouting and information. And I see overlords scattering the map from the Zerg players and all that stuff in ways that I don't normally see when it comes to PvAI, so player versus AI. I definitely look at it and I think, this is in some ways the way StarCraft was meant to be played, of course. But also, I can see a lot of value in really balancing out some aspects of the maps, which are going to be the battlegrounds where the co-op experience happens when you're playing 2v AI or 1v AI with an AI ally or whatever. And so in that respect, I think it's a very interesting approach to balancing out all of the different things that could or are happening. And I really appreciate the fact that I can even do stuff like this. The fact that I have people who are interested in my content enough to give it a bunch of runs is pretty cool. I like that. So I am a big fan. And one of the things that has been a real takeaway lately is balancing out resources and the paths to expansions and stuff. And I've realized that it's like further cementing how useful the change has been and how positive to the game state the change has been, not just for map making, but playing them as well, for regenerating resources and making it so that mineral fields are permanent. It adds a sense of permanence to the significance of areas of the map, which I always knew, but I'm feeling it even more now that I'm playing it with and against players and watching players duke it out over battlefields, and to know that they're looking for a long con as well. Like, they're looking for short-term return, but they're also looking to secure a lot of money in the future when it comes to those maps. And so seeing the economic plays especially has been enlightening, and being able to significantly modify areas of the map, be it the first Protoss mission, which is what we just played yesterday, or the first or second Zerg mission, or the first or second Terra mission. You know, all of these maps that I've modified recently have been informed by this multiplayer testing, and I don't think there's been one single aspect of any of the maps that's been modified more than the resource arrangements and the quantities of the resources, and like how far away they are, how close some players have expansions versus how far some other players have expansions, how much of the map is contested territory, you know, that sort of thing. And so I'll point you to Terran 02, where you can actually see a pretty significant change in the new version, where the resources seem like they are being arranged in a more interesting manner. And not only interesting, but also in a way that, like, the brass player in the middle of the map, the brass Terran player, he doesn't have access to a expansion that's safe per se. You know, every expansion he could take is threatened by at least one, usually two other players. And that's where you get into the rut of things. You're like, how do I allow this player to even exist? You know, and if I removed him completely, then there would be too many expansions on the map, and there would be too many open areas without any enemies, in my opinion. So I can't just axe him, and I don't want to axe him anyway. So how do I make that position more useful, more engaging? And I think one of the things that I came away with was allowing him to have a stockpile of resources, where his mineral fields are disproportionately higher compared to other mineral fields. So he's got 500 more or 1,000 more per field than even some of the most well-stocked mineral fields. The idea being he can stay in his base and turtle off of one base, and of course Terran is ubiquitously good at that, right? Universally good at that, generally speaking. So, or uniquely. There was some I used 3 words, just simulation, but Terrans are very good at defending when they're given enough time to set up and they're given enough resources to set up. And even though you will see most players go off of one base, I'm sure it's very possible to go off of 2 bases, especially when coordinating with your ally. It's possible to secure a second base. I just like that it's one of those positions that plays so much differently than the other positions, and it's not through a gimmick. It's not through, like, spawning some shit in through triggers, or giving them a lot of stockpile in terms of, like, injecting extra money into their bank or something. That's not how you maintain their viability. It's not that they have a disproportionate amount of pre-placed junk either. It's just that they have more resources in their main, so that they can they can exist and sustain their existence off of one base for longer than any of the other players. And I think that that's a big deal. The fact that I realized I can even do something like that is really interesting. I've actually mirrored a similar design philosophy over to the Phoenix base in Protoss 01. That's an area where, in theory, Phoenix has even more expansions available to him. But in order to take safe ones, he would actually have to take away some of the expansions of his team. And in order to take ones that aren't so safe, he has to obviously brave the storm that is the front of Zerg that's going to be descending upon him. So it really underscores the need for scouting and teamwork and communication and game planning, like actual strategy. I almost said strategery, which is pretty funny, but actual strategy. That to me is obviously what StarCraft is all about to me. Like, obviously it's also about making sure you're adept at handling the micro stuff, but I've really grown as a level designer, which is not an area that I thought I would grow a lot in the near future. If you asked me a week ago, I wouldn't think that my thought process would have been tested and it would have evolved so drastically over the course of, just a week. But it has so far. And these multiplayer tests are a key reason why. And I definitely think that the resource example that I gave crystallizes it, but it's extended to even beyond that. It's underscored the importance of having pathing blockers that sort of break up certain areas and make it less open of a battlefield in some respects, and especially around pathways. Whereas, you have the idea that I came up with some weeks ago when I was working on the first in Consummate mission of separating out corridors and courtyards, where you've got corridors that are small, tight passageways between areas, and then courtyards being much more open areas where you could take large engagements. It's really underscored the importance of making sure that your map has enough of both of them, but also that they're balanced and paced well. Like the placing of the corridors, the placing of the courtyards is done in a way that allows for an organic map flow between a bunch of small passageways leading into an open area where you can do battle, and then taking battles in those smaller areas, as opposed to taking the big battles in the central courtyards, and like figuring out how to do that. So yeah, it's been a trip, we'll say, but it's been really cool. So I'm happy about that. I am very happy about how things have turned out. It's one of those things that I've really put a lot of time into lately, and I think it shows in the changes to the maps, but also it will probably show in how I construct maps in the future, not just if you're there watching the mod streams, one of which is about to begin right now. If you're there watching them as I construct these maps from scratch in the future, you'll probably see evidence of this sort of thing, but I think you'll see evidence of this sort of thing even just in the reverse, like the end product. You won't have to have paid attention to development to see the benefit of this sort of analysis and this sort of testing. And that's the most important thing that I look for. I look for stuff that people don't need to be doing a lot of research and watching a lot of other external media like mod streams or analysis videos or even DADCAWs like this. You don't need to consume any of this ancillary content in order to experience the benefit of this change in my technique and this change in my mindset. And that's where you can tell, I think, when you've really evolved in a meaningful and, in this case, very big way. And I'm all about meaningful, big things. So check out my Instagram, I guess. I don't know where to go with that one, but I am going to be doing a mod stream, so I will cut this there. I think that's a fine place to end. Thanks for hanging out and listening, and I got to come up with a topic for another DADCAW, so see you then. Bye.